Good afternoon, everyone. We're about ready to get started. Just to let you know, here we go. I'm going to have to use a gavel. They're having, we love bringing people together, but good afternoon, everyone. They're clapping because I never use the gavel, so it's a little entertaining. But thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. I am going to call the meeting to order. So if you're willing and able, if you'd like to join us for the pledge, please do. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. On behalf of the board, I welcome all members of the audience to this afternoon's meeting. This meeting is a working session of the board to conduct the business of the district. The agenda for today's meeting has been published, and the agenda items to be discussed and or voted on have been studied by the board members. I'd like to introduce the people participating in the meeting today. Recording Secretary Peggy King, Superintendent Michael Tully, board members Sandy Hayes, Han Tran, Dr. Jacqueline McGordy, and Elizabeth Sotak. I am Amy Cast, and I currently serve as president of the board. An agenda for this meeting is available online at boarddocs.com, and copies are also located on the table at the back of the boardroom. There will be an opportunity for public comments to be shared during the association and public comment portion of the meeting. Community members who are interested in viewing this meeting with closed captions are encouraged to follow the link on our website to the district's YouTube channel. The YouTube stream includes closed captioning for both regular school board meetings as well as study sessions. Visit nsd.org and under Our District, click School Board, then Board Meetings and Videos. And also, if you are here to address the board on agenda items, please sign in using the sign-in sheet on the table at the back of the room. And please also take a number which corresponds with the line where you signed in. So the first order of business for today is a land acknowledgement. Director Sotak.
We take this time to acknowledge that the Northshore School District occupies the unceded Coast Salish lands that have been here since time immemorial. We honor the ways of knowing and the ways of being of Indigenous peoples and tribal nations who are still here and thriving in our district community. We also acknowledge that this is a working land acknowledgement that will continue to evolve as our partnership with local Indigenous peoples and tribal leaders expands.
Thank you, Director Sotak. The next item on our agenda is the approval of the agenda. Do board members have any changes to tonight's agenda? All right, seeing none, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
So the agenda has been moved and seconded. One last spot for possible discussion. All right, seeing none, I will call for the vote. And the agenda is approved as published. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the superintendent's report. Superintendent Tully.
Thank you, President Cass. Since the last school board meeting, I have continued to be busy attending and participating in numerous meetings and school visits. Some examples include on Tuesday, December 10th, I conducted a listen and learn session for our families with students with disabilities and learning differences. And then on Thursday, December 12th, I conducted a listen and learn session for all members of our community. I attended the Puget Sound Regional Superintendent's meeting on Friday, December 13th, and held the Student Advisory Board meeting on Wednesday, December 18th. I have continued to conduct school-level strategic action plan reviews with school principals and several of their thought partners. Since the last school board meeting, I've conducted school strategic action plan reviews at Crystal Springs, Lockwood, Morelands, Kokanee, and Eastridge Elementary Schools, as well as Timbercrest Middle School. I also conducted a formal school visit at Bothell High School on December 12th and Wellington Elementary School on December 19th. This concludes my report for this evening.
Thank you, Superintendent Tully. The next item on our agenda is programs and special presentations. Superintendent Tully.
Thank you, President Cass. So during School Board Recognition Month this month, I want to personally thank each of you for your unwavering commitment to our students. Each of you are highly committed public servants, spending countless hours working to ensure all students thrive and receive a great education. I would like to provide some quick statistics to put the work of the school board into context for our staff, families, and public. In the last year, the school board members have represented the community's values and voice at 112 public meetings, consisting of board meetings, study sessions, special meetings, school visits, and graduations. They have attended 24 meetings to plan in preparation for the meetings I just mentioned. In the last year, board members collectively engaged in 39 special meetings. They also attended many of the school events and volunteer at our schools, as well as serve on state organizations like WASDA. The board members conducted 10 formal school visits. They also participated in 5 board retreats and conferences. And of course, they have responded to countless emails, spent hours reading over board materials and documents in order to govern the district well. Our school board members, individually and collectively, are committed. Commitment is truly unparalleled and appreciated. It is because of their leadership that Northshore School District continues to be a leader in public education in our region and in our state. So thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Tully.
So at this time, I ask that the board members come down in front of the dais to receive certificates and take a photo.
No, there's no check, Sandy.
No, not my thing. Thank you so much.
Okay, continuing on, we're going to move on to association and public comment. The Northshore School District Board of Directors has set aside a period of up to 60 minutes to receive updates and comments from district association leaders and community members. As referenced in multiple policies by the board, we expect all parties addressing the board to present their comments in a way that is civil and respectful. This means that whether we're school directors, district staff, students, members of the community, or some other guest, we must all follow the same standard of civility during school board meetings. Please speak directly to the board and address matters relating to district operations, policies, procedures, and agenda items under consideration by the board. Washington state law requires that the board limit its business and discussion at this board meeting to only those items that have been captured in the previously published agenda. What that means for us today is any public comment regarding items that are included in the published agenda will be taken into consideration by the board when that topic is addressed during the agenda. Any topics brought up during public comment that are not included in the published agenda cannot, by law, be discussed at this meeting, and so will not be addressed or received a response during the meeting. In either case, depending on the nature of your topic or questions, a district employee or a board member will follow up with any comments that relate to district business. Please note that the board's silence during public comment is neutral by design. It's neither a signal of agreement or disagreement with a speaker's remarks. And please also note that comments should not make reference to any employee or representative of the district by name or by identifiable reference. If you're interested in making a comment or complaint regarding an individual, you may use the complaint process available through the Office of the Superintendent. Finally, please remember that your words have impact and you, not the school district, are responsible for your words. We caution all speakers that it's possible that your statements can violate the rights of others under various laws, including laws protecting privacy and laws prohibiting defamation. If you're unsure of the legal effect of your remarks, you should seek independent legal advice. In any case, we ask that you help us model for our students what a respectful and inclusive community looks and sounds like. So how we do this is first we invite association leaders who might want to come up and speak. I see one in the front row if she'd like to come up.
I always have updates. Okay, my name is Holly Munchow. I'm the VP of Advocacy for Northshore Council PTSA. First off, I want to thank everybody who was able to attend last Saturday's Reflection Art exhibition, as well as all the amazing artists who submitted art on our topic for this year, Accepting Imperfection. There was so much amazing stuff, dance and music, as well as all the usual formats. So, and we have a number, I can't even go into them, there's quite a few, headed to Washington State PTA for that competition. And we'll have those results later this year. And then for any PTAs that might be listening, quick reminder that the Washington State PTA has a new address. And so if that's in any of your legal paperwork, you need to update that. And for our entire community, the Northshore Council PTSA nomination form is open for nominations for next year's officers. So if you know anybody who would make a great community member to help us grow our PTA in Northshore, please let us know. And looking forward on the 14th, tomorrow at 8 p.m., we have an Advocacy Coalition meeting online. Our grant applications are due on the 27th. Our next general membership meeting is the 21st. And we have an exciting announcement for the 4th for our e-prep meeting, our monthly e-prep meeting. We will be going over, in fact, Communication Director Carrie Campbell, I believe, will be joining us to share the Safety and Wellness Task Force recommendations, and the entire community is invited to join that e-prep emergency preparedness meeting. And then, of course, I have to mention again that February 17th is Focus Day, Washington State PTA Focus Day in Olympia, and the registration is open, and everybody in our community, whether you're a PTA member or not, is welcome to join us to meet with our elected representatives and remind them why public education is so important. Thank you.
Thank you, Holly. Thank you. Any other association leaders?
Hello, happy School Board Appreciation Month. My name is Tiffany Rodriguez. I'm the principal of Innovation Lab High School, and with me are Kristen Bailey from Arrowhead Elementary, Letisa Joseph from Kenmore Elementary, and James Van Stralen from Timbercrest Middle School. We're representing the Northshore Association of School Administrators, many of whom are here with us this afternoon. As a group, we have written a letter to share our concerns about the proposed cuts to school administrators, and we'd like to read you that letter right now. To the Northshore School Board, we, the undersigned, are writing this letter because of the proposed cuts to the administrative teams at each of our 4 comprehensive high schools, as well as the proposed cuts to safety and supervision at multiple other schools by eliminating deans. Principals, assistant principals, and deans first and foremost serve students and families. Our experience is that the cuts made to elementary assistant principals last year have negatively impacted the safety and security of our children, as well as their learning environment. We expect that the cuts to assistant principals at our comprehensive high schools and the cuts to deans will have the same negative impact. We want to express our concern that further cuts to support and supervision at the building level will make schools less safe for students. The paramount duty of each administrator is the safety and security of every student, faculty, and staff at the buildings they oversee. Administrators respond to threats to school safety, including bomb threats, shooting threats, students in crisis, and students that seek to harm their peers emotionally or physically. Administrators are first responders when it comes to student safety at our schools and at district venues like Pop Keeney. Administrators work to prevent harassment, intimidation, and bullying, and intervene when students commit HIB offenses. Administrators work to eliminate the presence of drugs, alcohol, and tobacco in our schools, and work with students who make the mistake of bringing these items to campus. Administrators deal with gang issues and gang threats. Additionally, administrators meet and interact with numerous students each and every day in instructional ways to support them and help them make the best possible decisions for themselves and their futures.
To continue, administrators also supervise all lunches at every school because hundreds and hundreds of students are simultaneously released to lunch and are not supervised by teachers whose contract ensures duty-free lunch so that they have time for their nourishment they need to do their job. Administrators at the high school level also supervise numerous evening sporting events as this is required by WIAA, both to ensure student safety and to promote sportsmanship throughout our communities. Student safety is on the mind of each administrator from the start of the workday, which often begins as early as 7 a.m. and sometimes earlier, until the end of the last evening sporting event, which can end past 10 p.m. In January of 2024, just over a year ago, when cuts to high school administrators were initially considered, North Shore administrators pulled data from all 4A high schools in the state of Washington and compared the number of assistant principals to the number of students served. At this time, 1 year ago, the average enrollment at non-North Shore 4A schools was 1,992 students, with an average of 3.57 assistant principals, a ratio of 558 students to 1 AP. Using those 2024 numbers, reducing the number of assistant principals to just 2 at each of our comprehensive high schools would result in a student to AP ratio of around 750 students per AP at Inglemoor and to 950 students per AP at North Creek, when the state average is at 558 students per AP. Nothing is more important than the student safety, and the proposed cuts to administrative positions at the 4 comprehensive high schools will definitely have a negative impact on the safety because there will be less supervision. There will be fewer administrators available to supervise, fewer administrators available to respond, and fewer administrators able to provide intervention support and attend to the needs of all our students.
This year, we are seeing the impacts of reduced administrative support at our elementary schools because of the cuts made last year. Administrators report they spend much of their day responding to incidents instead of being able to prevent them. Administrators report that their efforts to keep students safe with reduced administrative staff has to be their highest priority, so there is little time left in the day for other important administrative duties, like collaborating with families, coaching instruction, or implementing district initiatives like multi-tiered systems of support. If these cuts do happen without a plan for central office administrators to step in, then it is inevitable that lunches will have less supervision, and lunch is where many altercations happen, and some after-school and evening events will lack supervision altogether. Most importantly, these cuts could result in a child being hurt when we could have prevented that had we made different decisions and looked elsewhere, further from the schoolhouse, to find the necessary cuts. We understand that in times of financial instability, difficult decisions have to be made. However, as a district committed to racial and educational justice, we feel that cutting high school assistant principals and cutting any more staff from any of our schools directly reduces the safety and security of each and every student and cuts the support for our students furthest from educational justice, who deserve to be known, seen, and supported.
Let us continue to have the safe, secure, thriving high schools that are a reason so many look to North Shore as a destination district. Thank you, the undersigned members of the North Shore Association of School Administrators.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Do I see any other association leaders? Okay. So now we're going to move on to the rest of the public comment portion. How this works, if you haven't had an opportunity to do this before, I call out a number and you come up, and there's a timer up here on the screen for 3 minutes. We ask you to introduce yourself by name for the record. And we appreciate everyone taking the time to come out this afternoon. So speaker number 1.
It's a bigger crowd than I'm used to. Okay. Hello, everyone. Happy New Year, and thank you, School Board, for all the time, energy, and love you give our community. I'm Nicole Dibble, a North Shore parent, teacher in the Everett School District, and a visual art education advocate. As we kick off 2025, I want to share some exciting news full of possibility. A group called Northshore Visual Art Partners has formed with its first meeting last fall. It is made up of students, staff, families, and community organizations who have joined together to support, celebrate, and advocate for every student's access to visual art education. There's great enthusiasm for the importance of visual art education, celebrations of good things happening in the visual arts, and discussions of how to give our students the well-rounded arts education needed to function in our global society and creative economy. So much possibility for us as a district. This came after 3 years of advocating for equitable access to visual art education in elementary. Now we are expanding our efforts and possibilities to all visual art programs district-wide. We hope to act as support, a cheering squad, and outspoken advocates. Last year, cuts were made to an already fledgling visual art department with little to no communication, solid reasoning, or regard to best practice in child development and educational research. Half of the Canyon Park visual art courses were cut. Bothell High School Visual Arts also received uneven cuts compared to other departments following a retirement. The Visual Art Partners are excited to connect and strengthen visual arts district-wide by celebrating the awesome work students and educators are engaged in. Last March, the district-wide art show was hosted here at the Admin Building for Youth Art Month. Many students in visual art classes proudly displayed their hard work with over 200 pieces on show. Presenting work is an important part of the artistic process and is a learning standard for the core subject of visual art. The art display made an impact on staff, community, families, and students, with many voicing disappointment when the show ended and the art was taken down. This effort is something that the North Shore Visual Art Partners looks forward to supporting, as well as hopefully maintaining art on display here in the boardroom, which has since lapsed since the summer. It's difficult to maintain these important projects in our district when there is not a coordinator, TOSA, or admin position dedicated to support the arts. This may seem like an extravagance considering current budget conversations, but I assure you it is best practice and what is happening in other districts. This is what I found for districts nearby. Everett has a visual and performing arts coordinator, Edmonds manager of visual and performing arts, Seattle visual and performing arts project manager, Bellevue arts curriculum developer, Lake Washington visual and performing arts teaching and learning specialist. It is my understanding that we have a music coordinator, but when I looked online, I could not find that information. The next meeting for the North Shore Visual Art Partners is Tuesday, January 28th at 6 p.m. at the McMinimans Thorndike Room. All are welcome and encouraged to attend. You received an email from one of our partners last month, and I want to extend the invite again here. The things I brought up tonight are issues that are complex and require creative thinking and a growth mindset to resolve. These are things we must foster in our children and in ourselves. When we look at a blank piece of paper, do we see emptiness or do we see possibility? What mindset do we want our children to have? Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. Speaker number 2.
Good evening. My name is Todd Biddle, and I am currently an assistant principal at Bothell High School. I have been serving the families of Northshore School District since 2021, both at Crystal Springs Elementary and Bothell High School. I would like to take a moment to talk through aspects of my tenure in Northshore School District. It is my understanding that the board has approved the elimination of one AP position at each of the comprehensive high schools for the next school year. As you have just heard and will hear from other people, this will affect campus safety, the ability to support instruction with fidelity, as well as culture at our 4 comprehensive high schools. It will absolutely impact our students directly. I have also been told by multiple people that this reduction in force is about eliminating positions, not people. It is a business decision. As the person with the least amount of seniority at the high school level, I am standing here in front of you as a person attached to one of those positions. Every day, we are asked to humanize what we do. We are asked to look at what is behind the data, to look at street data. We take this on wholeheartedly. This work is not easy, and not only can it take a personal toll, but it impacts our families and the time we get to spend with them. With that said, in my opinion, this position, both last year and this year, has completely lacked humanity. Last year, while this exact discussion was happening at the 4 comprehensive high schools and APs potentially being eliminated, we were asked to take on the task, the HR function of telling teachers that they were being riffed. During this process, we were given a survey by the executive cabinet asking what supports we need. I responded very directly about the supports that would be helpful, and I did not hear from anyone. This year, when it was made known that an AP at each high school was being eliminated, I reached out to several members of the executive cabinet again. I even included the screenshot from my survey last year. I have yet to hear from anyone. To this point, other than the discussion with HR about my contract, I'm still waiting just to hear about how this process is being supported. When I graduated from the Danforth program at University of Washington in 2021, I was offered multiple jobs as a secondary administrator. I brought 22 years of experience, both in high school and district level roles in San Francisco and Seattle. I am also a former adjunct professor at the University of San Francisco. After a lot of consideration, I chose Northshore School District based on the commitment to racial and educational justice and the public-facing plans around supporting our most marginalized students. I bought a home in this community and moved my family here. I thought that I would retire from this school district. To my knowledge, I am one of the only Indigenous leaders in the district. The second person whose role will be eliminated at the high school level is Southeast Asian, and the third is Black. I believe that our hiring was part of the previous superintendent's philosophy around representation and building a diverse leadership team. Of the remaining high school administrators, there will only be 2 BIPOC building leaders at all 4 comprehensive high schools. We, the eliminated administrators, oversee special education services, school REJ teams, as well as support our multilingual students. We are doing the work that is outlined in the strategic plan. To this day, we have not received any information about the elimination of the 3rd AP at each comprehensive high school. And in my opinion, clarity and communication matter, representation matters, humanity matters. The lack of consideration of these things from the executive branch of Northshore School District is unacceptable in my opinion. Due to the way these processes have played out over my tenure in NSD and the lack of clarity on my future in the district, I have tendered my resignation, and January 31st will be my last day in Northshore School District. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Todd. That concludes our public comment portion of today's meeting. We sincerely appreciate the heartfelt comments and everyone coming out to share them with us. We do have additional agenda items plus a study session on the budget after this. So we're going to go ahead and continue with our meeting. We love a full boardroom, but understand if you have other obligations. So we're going to go ahead and continue on with the agenda. Thank you. So the next item on the agenda is the adoption of the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Are there any questions or discussions on the consent agenda?
Just since I saw him sneak in the back of the room, I would like to welcome back Chris Brennigan to our district. We're thrilled that he is back.
Thank you, Director Hayes. Anything else from the board on the consent agenda?
I did actually have a question on the instructional materials, the CTE and the physics. And I apologize, but I feel like in the past we used to receive information as to how many students were receiving the material, how many students were impacted. Thank you. That's the word. Words. And a little bit of background, what schools. And I don't know how far back that memory goes. But
Okay, so of course, I don't have that information here this evening, but we will definitely gather that and provide it in the Friday update.
okay, thank you.
I have a comment about the policy 3410. I'm very excited to see the changes that were made about vision screenings and looking at kids near and distance vision, because I do that all the time at work, and it really matters a lot for students to be able to see up close to work and see far away for the board. So I'm happy to see that change.
Thank you, Director Sotak. Any other comments or questions? I see Director McGrady thinking. No pressure, though.
As soon as I have thought processes left, I did ask a couple of questions via email earlier, but I can take those offline.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, so hearing no more discussion, the consent agenda has been moved and seconded. I'm going to call for the vote. And the consent agenda passes. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is a performance review. This is the monitoring report for Superintendent Parameter Policy Number 7, Student Learning Environment. Superintendent Tully.
Thank you, President Cass. This, of course, as you said, this is the monitoring report for Superintendent Parameter Number 7, Student Learning Environment. It contains information regarding how we provide welcoming, supportive environment for all students and families, how we protect against unsafe conditions, behaviors, or actions by adults and or students. It includes how we include student voice in the learning environment and educational process, how we ensure that all policies and procedures regarding discipline are enforced consistently, equitably, and proportionally across schools and demographic groups, and how we prohibit the use of corporal punishment. I would like to thank the Chief Academic Officer, Dr. Obadiah Dunham, for his work with members of multiple departments to compile the information contained in the report. And formally, I hereby present the monitoring report for Superintendent Parameter 7, Student Learning Environment, in accordance with the monitoring schedule set forth in board policy. And I certify that the information contained in the report is true as of today, Monday, January 13th, 2025. I know that each of you have had an opportunity to read and study the report, and we are happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Superintendent Tully. Any questions or comments from the board?
I'll do one.
I think this is where I saw a comment about the listen and learn sessions and how you would try to bring multiple groups from across the district together for one night, and there was a pretty low turnout. And there could be any number of factors with it, but I just was thinking back to some of those that you held in previous years and how the communities just seemed so excited, and just it was such a dynamic environment there, where they were sharing their culture, whether it was the dance or the food, all of these things. And I was wondering if that's something that you had considered with respect. I know we didn't have them bring dinner and things like that this time around, but I think being able to share those aspects of their culture with each other would be a terrific way to get to know each other better. I don't know if that would work on something like a listen and learn night, but I certainly applaud the effort to bring our communities together from disparate cultures.
Well, thank you for that feedback. We, yes, this was a learning experience for us. We tried something different this year. Of course, we've sent out many invites and repeated invites and didn't get the turnout that we were hoping for. So we have already taken a step back, reflected on that, and are looking to do something different going forward.
Thank you, Director McGurty. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Okay, I'll start with the ones that I know how to say it. So first, the student wellness and safety, great, lots of wonderful work. Thank you so much. I am wondering, it feels like this is the appropriate place to be the online information to talk about our work around cell phones in school and some of the AI work that we didn't earth in this document, and that also contributes to the student learning environment, that work that we're doing there. And so it's just more kudos, but it didn't get mentioned.
Yes, we, of course, are currently working on a proposed policy, district level policy on mobile devices in general. And of course, it is something, a body of work that will be reflected in next year's report once that work is finalized.
Thank you. All right, thank you. And then, again, not a criticism, but the Student Wellness and Safety Advisory Committee put together an amazing document full of great suggestions that I feel like, other than our myopic focus on one page of it, has gotten lost. And there was so much rich, really great ideas in there, and we're not monitoring it all or checking it at all, and this feels like the parameter that it would be a good place to attach that and have us at least kind of look through it and how are we doing and where can we improve. So that's just a suggestion.
Thank you.
Because I hate for all that work to get lost.
And just the advisor, well, there was the task force recommendations, and the task force work concluded. So now we have the advisory committee to monitor implementation of the recommendations.
Yes,
that's
we,
going forward.
as a board,
The board,
don't
okay,
get
yes.
that reminder of what those recommendations are without having to remember what board meeting we talked about those in.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Okay, and then I'm trying to figure out how to talk and code around this. So the warm, supportive environment for all students and family, protections against discrimination. We're heading into an era where this is going to be increasingly an issue. And how do we as a board stay apprised of the work that is being done without increasing the potential harm to our families? Did you read through did that? Okay, good. Thank you.
So is that a wondering or a question?
It's a wondering of how do we stay informed, because I know there's work being done, and I know there is much more to be done, but how do we stay informed of what that is without raising the potential of our families being harmed due to information being then available. So that's, like I said, I'm wondering, how do we do that work without making things worse? There we go. There we go. Now I got it.
Okay.
Thank you, Director Hayes.
My turn. I appreciate the acknowledgement of, the effects of bullying or different policies on students, and all the different ways that things are being handled, vector alerts and grievances and all of that stuff. I know there's the student rights and responsibilities handbook that they need to read and understand. And the wording, I don't know if this is any, I don't know. The protection of students within the student environment from retaliation if they voice their grievances in an appropriate manner. And I struggle with an appropriate manner because I have seen kids who voice their grievances in an inappropriate manner. And I just wonder if there's sort of teaching opportunities or something that can be incorporated into that, or making sure that even if they voice their grievances in an inappropriate manner, that they're somehow getting supported to move towards the appropriate stream of information so that they can get it heard. And, yeah, I mean, I know that there are things in place, but I just hate the word appropriate. I just don't like it. Not hate. Hate's a strong word.
I know what you're talking about. I feel the same way about that phrase, and I am forgetting the phrase, but there is a socially positive phrase, and I will find it and I will email it to y'all. But another school district did a study on something similar and came up with something that was more encouraging of students to be positive stewards of the folks in the environment around them.
Yeah, and I think sort of one of my issues is when you come across kids who have a hard time stopping themselves from doing or saying things, or have some sensory stuff, and then that shows up as they're grieved, but they aren't showing it in an appropriate way. Again, that there's teaching and support that goes along with that, and because I definitely want them to be able to talk about things that are difficult for them or that need to be changed with help if need be. That's
so agreed, and I would hope in general practice what you're describing occurs. I mean, we understand in school environments it's an opportunity to teach and respond to student needs, so that's ongoing. However, I would also note that the language contained in this document is actually under the board's control, and if you are recommending changing the language of the parameter,
I'm wondering if that's something we should do.
Well,
that's my wondering.
Just hold on like 4 minutes.
I will hold on to that, keeping it in my
agenda item.
mind. But yes, I always am very concerned for kids who interact with the world in a different way, and those interactions are not always understood in a way that adults traditionally appreciate.
Right.
Yeah. Great. Yeah, no, thank you for that, Director Sotak. Appreciated. And I see Director Tran composing some thoughts. So do you want me to go ahead or?
Oh, you go ahead. I am writing notes about the phrase so I can remember to look it up later.
I know what you mean. I had to write it down too, because otherwise it's gone. So to kind of make this cumulative, actually, I wanted to think about harassment, intimidation, bullying, discrimination under 2C in the policy. This is something, and again, kind of having this additive conversation, a lot of feedback that we got from, well, the students and families and staff too during the task force last year was that it is quite a concern, harassment and bullying and discrimination within our schools, and we hear that through Panorama results as well. I don't find much information within the report under 2A, and maybe I'm not looking in the right place. That's kind of where my brain was looking for it. In terms of strategies and growth or even just simple steps that are being taken to address those concerns, I just don't find that it's been captured in the report. And again, there are some other places it's woven, and perhaps I was looking for a little bit more, direct addressing. There's lots of great information on safety, on physical safety within there, but in terms of climate and culture, not quite as much. And so I would hope that perhaps we can have a way of having a conversation around that to understand. I know work is getting done. I hear snippets of it, but it's a great way of talking about how to create a more supportive climate and culture within our buildings.
Thank you. Yes, we also have a couple other reports that we typically, a lot of that type of information shows up, and I think in the Goal 2 report. Okay. However, we'll have to look at that, but we can try to provide some additional information for the board relative to the harassment, intimidation, bullying data points and the work that we're doing around that.
Wonderful, thank you. And then just one other thing, kind of the appendix. Yes, it was specifically an appendix talking about all the other work that wasn't directly referenced by the policy. Seeing, for example, the district-wide standards on different physical aspects of our buildings. I just want to express strong support for the work being done around bathrooms, how they're configured and their safety. Vape monitors, you would hope. I know there's appropriate privacy considerations for that, but the idea to really consider that in buildings that aren't undergoing renovation would be something I would want to make sure that we talk about. Okay. And think about that. It continues to be, of course, it's the era we live in. It's going to continue to be an issue. And then I make sure, and also too, I just wanted to come, we haven't specifically addressed this, but the racial and educational justice work, the school teams getting set up and how it's starting to, the work is getting down into every classroom. It's just really wonderful to have this opportunity to review that. So that was my thoughts, Director Tran. If you wanna wrap us up.
Sure. There are so many aspects when it comes to safety in schools to consider, and even more than safety is well-being of students, well-being of educators, anyone in the schoolhouse. And it's difficult for a single-page policy to cover all the details. So to Director Hayes, your point, right? Maybe, and this isn't a discussion, maybe not to be had on the dais because it can be lengthy, is how we as a board want to be informed of the work that is being done. Because I know there's a lot of work being done for this single page policy, and how we can effectively communicate that not only with the board, but also with the community. So they're aware of the steps that we're taking to keep their students, our students, safe while they're in the schoolhouse. And Yeah, I looked at this and the language and then also the report itself. There's stuff that we can also discuss as a board to kind of suss out some of this. I am not a lawyer. I don't want to go into the nitty gritty of the. I know I'm looking over here because you're one. To be too pedantic, but I think our language matters, and how we want to conduct within our policy guidelines. So a little bit of a discussion there wouldn't hurt.
Thank you. Taking notes.
Your wrap up was so much more well-rounded. Mine is super focused.
But again, it's nice that we're not redundant. So this is good. All right. As I'm taking notes here. Any other thoughts? Again, it's very important policy and report. Any other thoughts from the board?
Actually, if I could just follow up a little bit, I had sent again as I go through these things, I come up with questions, and if I think, it's a little more complicated than we have time for during the meeting, I will send them ahead of time to see if we can get answers. But on a similar vein, I was wondering, with Superintendent Tully, you've spelled out very, very eloquently, I think, here, all the things that are being done to try to protect against discrimination, HIB, and so forth. But it wasn't necessarily clear that this policy, as with a number of our policies, if, here you're reporting on what is being done as a preventive measure, as a protection, but it's not necessarily the place where here's how we're doing, here's whether or not we're succeeding. And as you said, perhaps in the goals, this would all come under the goals, and where we get the accumulation of all the data associated with these topics. And I think that's good. But of course, every time we see a policy like this, it jumps into the forefront of our heads. Where are we with that? How are we doing with respect to demographic variation in HIB reports, or discriminatory or harassing behavior? And again, that's a whole lot for one policy, but perhaps if we can reference it, or if there's a place where this is being collected regularly and you can point us to that, or a summary page or something, and we can go and see it in the context of what the policy is actually addressing, which is how you are implementing protective measures and the student learning environment, if that makes sense.
Thank you for that, Director McCarty.
I was just going to say, if it sounds like a lot of these things are referenced in goal reports, or a lot of it. So I'm wondering too if it would be easier to just say, like, hey, the most up-to-date stuff is this goal report, here's a link, or something to make life easier, so we're not writing the same thing over and over again in 5 different places, when it can just be connected via the magic of the interwebs.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Important discussion. So I'm not seeing much other discussion. So per our policies, now we have, by policy, we have the responsibility to provide feedback to the superintendent on this report. And so, as spelled out, we have 3 options. A board member can make the motion to find the superintendent in compliance with policy P7, making adequate progress towards compliance, or not in compliance. So we will entertain a motion.
Oh boy. All right. So I would say, just based off of the report and the issues that we're facing within the school district, I won't go over details. I want to suggest that we're making adequate progress towards compliance, but I can be swayed either way.
So with Robert's rules, thank you for the motion.
I move.
So then you move to find superintendent making adequate progress?
Correct.
Okay. Is there a second for that motion?
I'll second, and then we can discuss
Yes.
as needed.
Yes, exactly. And also, again, per our policies, when the superintendent is found not in compliance with a policy, they are required to provide a corrective action plan. Making adequate progress is a little bit more in the middle, but the board does have an opportunity to communicate what information, what forward progress they are looking for in order to, I'm just in terms of informing our discussion, in order to get the performance up to compliance. So, but it isn't as formal as if the superintendent is found not in compliance of the policy. Okay, if that helps. So thank you. We have a motion. It's been seconded. Any discussion?
I guess I'm curious if we're saying adequate progress rather than in compliance, because you feel like Superintendent Tully did not provide the information we asked in this parameter, or we don't have the information of things that we have surfaced tonight. And if it's the latter, speaking as a parent of children who struggled at school as it was, it feels unfair to hold him accountable for things that we've just raised this evening.
So I'll speak to that. It's not the lack of data, and I'm trying to be also coded. It is the it's partially some of the implementation that I've observed. Don't know if that's making any sense.
Okay.
And if clarifying questions would be helpful, Superintendent Tully, feel free. Yeah.
Is it around implementation of having like protections for particular groups of students and in their school communities that is possibly like, I'd love to understand better.
Yeah.
You don't need to name a group or anything, but
yes,
you know.
groups of students, but also groups of I'll say it broadly, educators, right? And just some of it is not on the school district because some of it is through its influence through right? Things that are out of our control.
Might I ask a clarifying question? Again, I think this will support our conversation as well as support our the ongoing growth of the district and feedback to the superintendent. If we look at the policy, might we be able to identify areas that we'd want to have further conversation about, or is it the policy as a whole?
It's not the policy as a whole. It's examples of places where we could definitely use some improvement.
Okay. Okay.
If I could relate it to that, and just looking at the way the policy is spelled out and different items, enumerated here, it will always be in process for most of our policies when it's not going to be perfect, and there's always going to be certain, I guess, people, different schools, different communities that may or may not benefit as much, may or may not feel that they are protected by these things. But I do feel that the way this policy is written, and maybe that's something we can look at, how it's written and whether or not it's specifying everything we would like to see. But I feel that most everything here is covered. Whether or not, day to day on the ground in the schools, everything is being implemented the way it is intended to, that's a different question.
I was going to say, and to speak to your point, Director Tran, this is specifically referring to student learning environment, so we have to make sure that we're, around educators. If it's around educators' interactions with students, then I think that's appropriate. But I want to make sure that we're focused on specifically the student learning environment, which I know is affected by how educators are feeling and how safe they feel in the environment too. But I do think it's very I want to make sure that we're not trying to make this too broad.
No, yeah, it's within the schoolhouse. It's it's not dealing with anything outside of the district or the schoolhouse. Yeah. And I know this process can be very awkward, and I'm trying to explain my thoughts here live. Not the greatest at doing it. The district is, we have a large district, and I understand that everything is a work in progress. It's difficult to make sure that everyone is 100% safe 100% of the time. Believe me, that's not what I'm expecting here. What I would like us to consider is not just the information that's provided here, but some of the systemic issues that we're faced with. I don't know how detailed I should get here, but there are several, and one that I'm thinking of is our last conversation around making sure that the students have the supports that they need within the building, and the folks there that can help them, because it's not just physical that we should be looking at, although this is how it's written.
Well, and I would say the language in number 2 involves behaviors and actions. So not just physical, but behaviors and action as well. And thank you for that. The continued dialogue is really helpful, and everyone's input. It's interesting because it's been this way, right? Like superintendent parameters always overlap. They provide the way of examining how the work is structured, the work itself, some of the systematic aspects where the goal reports have more of the data, like especially when you think of P9, which is our racial and educational superintendent parameter, and then goal 3, right? Like we see that sometimes it's not a perfect alignment how the work is discussed. So it's I think by nature it's just going to be something for us to sort out, and this is, especially by law, the place where we do it. So I also appreciate your points, Director McGroarty, about how there are aspects of this that will be a long-term journey, right? And so I appreciate the long-term aspect of some of the systematic work as well, and the ability for the system to check itself is something that is relatively new over the last 11 years I've been here. So that is something I keep in mind as well when I think about this. When something does come up, how does the system respond as well? So, but thank you. Director Hayes is thinking. She's got that thinking.
My brain's stuck. So being an former educator and this being in the education system, to me, the point of the parameters is to encourage continuous improvement. And very much like a grade on an assignment, if it's just the grade, that doesn't encourage continuous improvement, right? I got a C, but I don't know why, right? And I don't feel like we have had a dialogue yet that would encourage that improvement, that has given direction to Superintendent Tully of here is where we need improvement. Like, and just because it's simple, it says the thorough communication to students of their rights and responsibilities in their schools. If we had had a conversation of, I know that there are 5 schools where the students didn't get their rights and responsibilities handbook, or there wasn't a thorough discussion for students of what these mean, then we can say there's a problem. This is something that we need to improve on, and we can have that conversation. But I haven't heard anything yet that makes me feel like that is something that that is actionable, that we can improve for next year. That was an expectation for this year. That's where my brain stopped.
I agree with that. And I know we run into this every time we do these because we get goal reports, and then, the goal reports are where the depth of the information is about how well things are being implemented and what that looks like and how it's being reflected in student and parent surveys and, based on changes and things that are going on at schools, etc. And then this is where I'm telling you what is happening, rather than the data around what is happening. And so I know every time we talk about this, and I wish they could be beautifully intertwined like a basket, and I know that's not always.
I have a suggestion, but I'm holding off until we get to that point.
Yeah.
It's like keeping us focused on this.
Yes.
Okay. I have a thought on how to weave that basket.
And I have a thought too on another point, but the point being that we need to talk about this a little bit more. And so the board typically has a retreat in March as well as May, and I've highlighted in yellow this would be a perfect retreat topic, is diving into this. So just to let you know, that's already on the table. So, okay.
Like I was saying, can be swayed because, to your point, this is all about continuous improvement, and I haven't given much in terms of, hey, this is how you can improve. Perhaps that's more appropriate within the goal reports.
Or in a retreat venue.
Or retreat venue, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, but there is a motion on the table, and it's been moved and seconded. So our option, we can vote on the motion.
Okay, so
or
our
it can be
options
withdrawn.
is
Yes.
it's a vote. We vote it up or down, so it's a
Right.
yes, no on it, or the motion can be withdrawn.
Or amend, well, but we can't amend because of policy. So
Right.
it's either withdrawn or voted on.
Okay. And it has to be the person that made the motion to withdraw. Okay, so I move to withdraw the initial motion. I'm feeling very emotional.
Okay.
I'm just
So that
picturing
motion
allowing
is
other people to
withdrawn.
withdrawing other people's motions. Oh, that's bad.
that would get awfully messy, withdrawing other people's motions. So that motion is withdrawn. So we will entertain. We still then need to entertain a motion in order to respond to the report.
I move that the superintendent is in compliance with policy P7, student learning environment.
Is there a second?
I second that.
Okay. So it's been moved and seconded to find the superintendent in compliance with B7. Any discussion?
I appreciate the discussion that we had.
Very much so. It's important. And Superintendent Tully, I would love to open up the floor if there is any clarifying questions or anything you'd like to remark on.
No, understand there is a need for linkage between the report itself and the note I made here to follow up is to figure out a way to continually, not just for this parameter report, for all parameters, how do we link to data sets that are already available through either goal reports or Friday updates or things like that, that in some way may link to the information that's in the reports, these parameter reports. So that's, we definitely can begin to take that lens on developing these reports going forward.
Okay.
No, because it's the next section.
It's in the next agenda item. So
Yeah.
So now we have a motion on the table. It's been moved to find the superintendent in compliance with P7. It's been seconded. Any other discussion? Okay. If seeing none, I'm going to call for the vote. Thank you for the discussion. So for everyone, so the board has an obligation to put our feedback down now. This is accumulated as part of the superintendent's evaluation at the end of the year. We are taking a quick moment to write down our thoughts now, so we'll remember them in May. And the motion passes too. I want to record that. Too busy writing. All right. Thank you, everyone. So we're going to move on the agenda, which is, like we always do, after we do a monitoring report for a parameter policy, we put that same policy on the agenda. Tonight is a perfect example why. Now we, by law, can discuss the policy language itself. So let's discuss the policy language itself. Under 4C, Director Sotak already flagged a phrase for discussion. I thought I heard maybe Director Hayes has a thought, which I'm just going to kick us off with that if you don't mind.
Okay. And it's not really about P7 itself. It's about, this is the second time that we've talked about linking data to our parameters from our goal presentations. Mm-hmm. And that feels like it's our work first of what is the data we want linked to the parameters before staff goes out and does a bunch of work figuring out how to do that. And so I'm wondering if at our retreat in March, we set aside a couple of hours and we, connections it where we the game, right?
We make a flow chart.
Whatever, right? But we have the reports from our 5 goals over the last year, and then the 14 parameters, and we say what data would we need for this parameter from that we have received over the last year, so that it's there.
All right, so noted. Thank you.
Okay, that was my thought.
Did you take underwater basket weaving? Because you are good at it.
I did not take underwater basket weaving.
And then did I hear Director Tran is going to do a little research and maybe come up with a suggestion on that phrase?
Yes, I will. Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't like the idea if you aren't protected from retaliation if you don't voice your grievances appropriately. That's the not necessarily exactly what it says, but that's sort of the outcome of that phrase. And I live in a household where people don't voice their grievances in a way that I would prefer. So I live it every day, so I still have to protect them.
For me, I think it's a matter of it being a subjective term. It can be very subjective, and that's something I think we've been working on removing or replacing in our parameters in general.
Maybe expected way, but again, I don't like the idea of like you don't get protection if you don't do it the way that we want, because that takes away the ability of students to make mistakes and have learning experiences, which they can't do if they're in trouble for saying they don't like something in the wrong way.
Okay. So duly noted. So we will continue working on that. Is there anything else in the policy you want to talk about at this moment? Again, we'll see it in March. Okay.
Do we need to add anything? I know we have cyberbullying or whatever, and I don't know if use of AI with students' likenesses is under the umbrella of cyberbullying, but I don't know if it's worth adding.
That would be my expectation.
Yeah, okay,
Do you
good.
think that's a reasonable interpretation of
Okay.
the line? Okay.
Good.
Okay.
Deep fakes, yeah.
Yeah. Good point. All right. Anything else? All right. Thank you for that. We're going to keep going. We're going to roll into information items. First up is the district budget status report for November 2024. Superintendent Tully.
Thank you, President Cass. Of course, a copy of the November 2024 budget status reports are provided for the board's review. Of course, as you know, these reports include information on enrollment, budget status information, general fund, capital projects funds, debt service fund, ASB funds, and transportation vehicle funds.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the board?
So more code speak. So my understanding of our funding is that we receive a monthly allocation based on our budgeted enrollment, and then in January it switches over to actual enrollment.
Trued up in.
Okay.
Yes.
And then we're already seeing that families are leaving the country. Not a huge number, but some, and that may grow in the coming weeks and months. How does that work? Well, if we get to April and we're down 100 students of where we are now, will that cause a decrease in allocated funding, or what happens?
I'll give it a try, but of course there's a lag in the reporting and the funding, but it is trued up in the end from our state allocation. But of course I will definitely allow our chief financial officer and deputy superintendent to help answer that question. She may have more specific information as related.
Good evening, directors. Jolyn Berge, Deputy Superintendent for the record. It's a 10-month annual average. So anything could bring our average down, and then you are, just like Superintendent said, you are based on that 10-month annual average. So if we lose students later on because of federal policy that's passed or whatever circumstances may be occurring, it will impact our counts, what we anticipated for that month, and it will decrease our revenue from our budgeted revenue. Yep.
So we could we could potentially see a situation where they right size their budget in May and June if our average has dropped.
Who would right size their budget?
The OSPI, whoever gives us our money.
No.
No?
No, they will not.
Okay. So we can get through that little scary stretch. Okay.
They will keep the same allocation. So what happens, let's say if enrollment is below their estimated amount, then they just have more carryover into the next state fiscal year. If enrollment is higher, then typically they can see that and forecast it. They have one of two options. There's some emergency appropriation that they can move around based on a letter requested to OFM, or they can ask for a supplemental request, which is what they've had to do quite often for transportation, is they've had to make supplemental requests, and for safety net. So those two things, typically their projection sometimes comes in under, and they will have to ask for money in the next legislative session. So a district can be impacted by that, by a cash flow delay, and when you're going to get the money.
Ooh.
Ah. Okay. More fun.
I have one too, since you're up here, and this is likely that I'm just misreading things a little bit, but on page 3 of the report, where it lists the different funds and then last year's budget year to date, this year's budget year to date, and so forth, under transfers in and other sources into the general fund, usually that corresponds roughly to transfers out of the capital budget. On this one, it's 3.7 million out of capital projects, but only about 2.0 into general fund. Did it simply go?
I don't have
somewhere
the
else?
answer for that one off the top of my head.
Okay.
We'll have to look at that.
All right.
Yep.
Thank you.
Page 3.
Page 3. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll ask my two while you're here. So, this one you'll know. So, looking at the fund balance trend, looks like we'll need to pass a resolution to borrow against capital again and pay interest.
Correct. Same timeline. We'll ask you to pass that resolution next month just to be prepared and ready, and then we'll trigger it and let board know if and when that becomes necessary, likely June and July.
Okay, because last year, we just barely skated through in March. I was getting worried that we're going to have trouble if we don't do that, making payroll in March.
Correct.
Okay.
I mean, we continue to keep our eye on that. It's possible. That's why we'll ask in February, knowing that we could get to a low point right before we have tax collection.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And then one more thing. And I know you won't know this one off the top of your head, but on page 10, we get a lovely report about comparison of expenditures other than compensation month by month with the 3-year trend. It's not been following any trend. So if we might be able to get something in the Friday brief, understanding, because the variances by month are quite large. And there's one footnote on the September one, but not on the October and November. And it's just, again, right now, every penny we're watching. So just helpful to understand what's going on there.
Sure.
Okay.
And we discuss those in our budget development meetings each week. It's been a little bit hard for us to pin down. What we pinned it down really is timing.
Okay.
Of when we're getting some bills in, when we're actually pushing the cash out the door. I think the footnote probably has to do with running start.
Yes, it did in September. Yep. See, you do know most of it off the top.
Well, some of them. So others are when we're having payments come through. And sometimes it's about what we're paying or how a payment can be structured. So we can try to identify the larger items, but there seem to be, we understand there's a lot of moving pieces, and coming out of COVID, those expenditure historical trends didn't hold true for what we previously saw and as we're moving forward. So I think we're still reestablishing pattern of behavior in some ways as well, but we continue to monitor that every month as we start to look at when are we paying certain things for the district? When are those bills coming in? Do we control those? Do we not control those?
Thank you. Any other questions for our Deputy Superintendent? Okay. Thank you so much.
I was just going to give out the frequent reminder that part of the reason why we run into the funding issue every year towards the end of the school year is because the funding we get from the state changes and they don't pay us all of the money they owe us in some months, and that negatively affects our fund cash flow, and so that's a thing that's real and frustrating. And so just a reminder of that's why our the trend lines look funky every year, because on what is it, page 4, June looks particularly icky from last year, and that is part of the reason that happened is due to the state choosing not to pay us the full amount that they paid on the other months.
Thank you, Director Sotak. Yeah, important point.
Icky being the correct financial term there.
Icky. Is that
The opposite of that would be meeting the paramount duty.
Oh, well
Oh, yes.
said.
Yes. Yes. We're just tricky.
All right. Any other discussion on this report?
One more little thing that I noticed, because I am hyper focused on the 3 to 5 year olds. Just if anyone's nitpicking things, the reason why there is a 67 child enrollment difference from last year to this year of 3 to 5 year olds is because kids continue to come into the district as they turn 3 throughout the year. So as kids turn 3, the number of kids right now, it's at 212 kids in the 3 to 5 year old program for special education, and that will continue to grow throughout the year as more children turn 3. So it will probably be above 294 by the end of the year.
Thank you, Director Sotak. Okay, any other discussion? All right, let's move on. Let's do the next information item, which is the Capital Projects Fund Allocation Report for November. Superintendent Tully.
Thank you, President Cass. These attached reports provide additional information to the monthly budget status report, the previous items we just discussed. The fund balance allocation report shows individual capital projects by major funding source within the capital project fund. These, of course, include the 2018 capital bond, the 2022 capital bond, technology levy, impact fees, and unreserved funds.
Thank you, Superintendent Tully. Any questions or discussion?
I just going to point out a couple things, because it turns out the world impacts us in ways that we would not have predicted. But I had a conversation with our capital projects folks, and they are working very hard to pre-purchase items before tariffs go up on them, which is fabulous. Also, I learned that we do purchase a lot of American produced steel, so I wanted to get that out there. And I learned that we have been told that we don't have to do that silly survey thing anymore. The obnoxious ask your neighbors if they have a spare building that you could use survey.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just put it in the back of your truck and haul it on over.
Right. Yes. But that is now done. We don't have to do that anymore. So
Thank you, Director Hayes.
Yep.
There you go. One last thing on the to-do list.
mhm.
Any other questions or discussion? All right. Thank you. So next up is the Capital Projects Status Report. Superintendent Tully.
Thank you, President Cass. Of course, a report is attached to the agenda for your review, reflecting the current status of the 2022 capital projects and bond growth projects.
Thank you. Any questions or discussion?
I still love them.
Mhm.
Every time I
mean,
love them.
Just the monthly updates are just
The monthly
so helpful.
updates are great. The pictures and graphics are great. They're all uniform. They give you a really clear picture of what is happening and what is going to happen. And there's cute little progress photos, so I don't have to drive around and look at stuff. It's great.
I wonder if, yeah, I agree with all of that. It's what Director Sotak always says. The millennial directors really appreciate the visual aid. I don't know. It's what she says. I'll own up to it too. I say that too. I know it's different. It's not anything generational. Okay, so my question to the board is: do we believe we might find value in seeing the changes in revision? So let's say you're tracking the changes for Maywood Hills Elementary, right? From each monthly report to each monthly report, do we need to see what happened last month and what the difference is this month? Would it help us, or is it asking for too much? We're just asking for things that are not going to be a value add for us.
I feel like we could just look at last month's report,
Okay.
right? It's a pretty little chart. Just go look at it. We get them every month. I think it'd be easy.
Okay, I got my answer.
Right.
I think is Annie that makes the report, or Anne? Yeah, she probably appreciates that answer. Don't add words.
Right. Any other discussion on these? Again, and nice to see some nice, what feel like to maybe that they're just emotional milestones, but they feel like milestones. So nice to see the progress. So thank you. Okay, next information item is project acceptance for projects under 1 million. Superintendent Tully.
Thank you, President Cass. So there were 2 projects under $1 million completed in this reporting period. These projects included Phase 3 of the interior improvements at Innovation Lab High School and work associated with the modernization project at Maywood Hills Elementary School.
Thank you, Superintendent Tully. Any questions or discussion? All right. Great. We're going to keep going then. Signed construction agreement for the 2022 bond projects is the last information item. Superintendent Tully.
The attached construction document that was signed during this reporting period. This was a Puget Sound energy easement associated with the Maywood Hills Elementary Modernization Project. Notice of this construction easements and agreements for this project was submitted to the board back on August 28th, 2023.
Thank you, Superintendent Tully. Any questions, discussion?
Okay, as much as I love me a good easement discussion, where is this easement? The description. Where is Maywood Hills on this map?
Or Kenmore?
It's Kenmore.
Yeah, I was just told that there was a correction made in the report. That is actually Kenmore, not Maywood Hills.
Okay, because then why is Snohomish County?
Kenmore is right near the border of Snohomish County, and so maybe this is something that has to do with utilities work, because it's just.
So again, where the heck this? I mean, I love this Southwest by Southwest paragraph.
Yeah, it's an area.
Yeah. Maybe somebody at some point can get that to me later.
Where do you see Snohomish County on here? I see King County.
It's because PSE is not.
PSE
is not Snohomish.
Okay, but
it's King.
Right. Okay.
So where it was notarized and signed
was Snohomish.
Oh,
there you go.
Because
that's where they were physically at when.
Okay. Well, all the more I can't figure out where this thing is.
He was signed. So it's in. Somebody else wants to explain it. I could do it, but somebody else might be better at it.
In Exhibit B, there is a little diagram.
Right.
Yeah.
So where's the school?
Oh, and on the okay. Yeah. Well, maybe a request for further information.
It'd just be helpful to know where the heck this thing is.
Well, if you go look at the really cute picture of the building site from Kenmore Elementary.
Does it say easement here?
Well, but when you look, so that kind of follows the road of when you go into Kenmore.
Next to the nice park.
Well, the park's in the back of the school.
Okay.
but there's a road with a wetland when going into the school.
Okay, but
You want to
think
come
that's
up and
where the
explain it better than I can?
Who's the expert here?
Oh, Dree, did you let us stumble around for like 5 minutes before you finally like, this is embarrassing? Thank you for coming to rescue
You're not
us.
missing too much.
I will send you a picture of the parcel map with the outline of the school.
That would be awesome. Thank
as
you.
well as the exhibit that goes with the actual easement.
Thank you.
Clarify in the future.
Thank you.
But for your entertainment, the easement is along the back end of the school. So if you look at the picture from the construction update, and then the shape of the thing on the easement, it's right behind the existing school building.
Got it.
So that they can have stuff go to the school, the new building.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. Okay.
All right, we're good.
Good.
Like one of those matching shape games. That's the only
I'm
way I
really
got
good
it,
at
'cause
those.
It's like a rectangle
See
with
that?
a little box
I'm
in the bottom.
impressed with your spatial skills there, Elizabeth.
Okay, so we're good. We have a study session yet, so I'm gonna keep us
It's
going.
important business.
It's Monday.
I know.
It's Monday, you guys.
Hate to be like all presidente, but
No,
that was our last information item. I know that's an adjective. I just made it up. So next up, board reports and communication. The first one is new business. Anyone have a new business item?
That I don't remember, but Director Hayes actually brought something up to me the other day with respect to our calendar. Is there somewhere on there the state of the district presentation?
State of the schools.
State of the
So
schools,
that the
yes.
format is changed.
Oh.
So Superintendent Tully, do you mind giving an update?
Correct. So it was determined that, unfortunately, the attendance at that type of event in the early morning, we were not getting the participation as we were hoping for. So this year, I'm going to, I don't know, it may be inappropriate to call it a road show, but I'm going to be going out to different organizations and giving a 45-minute update and then answer questions. I actually have done one of those already at the Woodinville Chamber, and we'll just continue to do those kind of things.
For example, the Kenmore City Council has asked us to get calendaring our joint meeting. That's going to be a perfect venue to do that.
Would it be appropriate for us to get the list of dates of when that's happening so that we can attend?
Yes, Peggy and Carrie are currently working on scheduling those. Yes.
Excellent. Thank you. I like the not early in the morning component.
Well, and reaching more people component.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well, yeah.
Yes. Okay. Any other new business? All right. You can't remember. Okay. You know where to find us, Director Tran. Okay. So let's go into board member reports then, and we will start with Director McCurdy.
And I thought I would roll my discussion of legislative stuff in here, so buckle up. And we don't have any more audience. Okay, so on December 12th, this has been so long. December 12th, I met with Director Hayes and a constituent to hear some input. And attended some Snohomish County virtual meetings, Federal Relations Network, LegRep Network meetings over the last month, yeah. I've also been communicating with our legislators to provide them with district information and trying to help arrange meetings when we were down there on the 27th. On January 9th, I had an opportunity to participate in a meeting with Representative Donahue, Director Tran, Director Fisher, and a union rep at Inglemoor High School to view and brag about our nutrition services team in action, as well as hear highlights of the need for universal free breakfast before the bell and lunch services, and discuss the underfunding of the school nutrition programs, unfunded mandates, etc., with the representative, how it impacts our students. And as we would expect Director Fisher and the staff just did an amazing job and did us proud, as usual. Then this past weekend was the WASDA Wassa WASBO Legislative Conference in SeaTac, which I attended with Directors Tran and Hayes and Deputy Superintendent Berge. And it was quite a good turnout, I thought. Highlights from that included the in-person attendance and question-answer session with the chairs of both the Senate and the House Education Committee. So Senate Early Learning K-12 and then House Education. There were great discussions about what is, I think, very consistent across districts throughout the state and all different sizes and shapes of districts. The legislators actually seemed to be on board for the first time in my recollection with respect to acknowledging that these issues are what they are and that, yes, they need to do something about funding for public education. So we'll see where that goes. The planned advocacy approach was discussed with respect to having a very strong unified approach to our legislators as different districts go down to Olympia to discuss with them, trying to get the most bang for our buck during those short sessions that we have with our delegations. The legislative session started today, so we are in the thick of it as we speak. We do have a scheduled trip. I don't know if we have everybody on board who will be going, but on January 27th, we will have a North Shore Day on the Hill in Olympia, and we have 5 or 6 legislators, I think, already booked for meeting with us while we're there, which is pretty good. And we'll continue on trying to expand that list as the date gets closer. We'll see now that they're embedded in session. Don't know how well that will work to include more. But we're also planning to have a strategy session on the 21st. I think everybody's been invited to that. Excuse me. I know several people, including myself, are working on providing additional data and collecting graphics. President Cass has been utilizing her tremendous graphic skills to produce some illustrations for us to provide not only when we go down there on the 21st, but ahead of that as well and after. Obviously, I think one of the things that I thought would be useful is as bills are being dropped or about to be heard in committee, to prepare them with further information before they read those. And of course, I think several of us, most of us, if not all of us, are reaching out to legislators and having conversations along the way to support the cause.
Let's just make sure we're reporting to you so that you're
Yes,
aware of those
yes.
conversations.
Was actually going to get to that, but as I said, coordinating with each other so that we make sure everybody knows who's doing what, and so we're not, reinventing the wheel every time. And I will try to keep up with everybody. A couple of highly anticipated bills were supposed to be dropped this week. It sounds like one of them, at least, already was, and that is a Senate bill addressing special education funding, which Deputy Superintendent Berge tells me could mean up to $14 million of additional funding. One thing I always hesitate with this with respect to the bills. Hopefully they're not just trying to increase the amount of funding that they are currently providing us, but actually fund it. Completely fund special education and transportation and MSOC as opposed to incremental steps along the way. We'll see how far we get with that as well. Let's see, so special education MSOC bills, I believe both Senate and House should be dropping this week, so we'll be watching for those. Others on the docket for transportation, simple majority, and levy lid I've seen already pre-filed. There are some 500 bills that have already been filed. About 160 of those are in some way relevant to education. They may not all be relevant to K-12, but there's a domino effect. Some of those obviously we'll monitor very closely. And I was wondering about possibly putting a link to some of those critical bills on our website so that the community can also see what's happening with them. WASDA will be starting their 2025 bill tracker soon, I think, but certainly as more progress is made and committee meetings are being held and the bills, get closer to being considered by committee, they'll start ramping that up and provide us with assessments as well as what the WASDA position on those bills is based upon our position as state school boards. Let's see. So just another thing to keep in mind, we should all be prepared to testify over the next few months on various bills. And again, between WASDA and Deputy Superintendent Berge and our lobbyist, Cliff Traisman, they will keep us informed and let us know what's critical to testify for and, help us with our using our words in a nice way. And that's what I have. Tell me what I've missed. I mean, there were 3 of us at the conference, 4 of us at the conference.
I think you did a great job covering what was talked about there. There were quite a few reps, and I'll get to it for my part from the town hall, but we had the 2, Senator Wellman and Representative Santos present, and they're both chairs of the Senate and House Education committees, respectively, or K through 12 committees. So it's good to hear their thoughts on it. I think I agree with you. It seemed like a positive output. I would add that Representative Santos has a slightly different focus than the big 3, which is MSOC and special ed and transportation. And that's fine. That's great. The things that the House is focusing on, it seems very, very important. Mental health of students, I think was one of them. Isolation and restraint was another. So a lot of great focus there. So if we can get those 2 tracking towards all of those, that would be wonderful.
Okay, anything else? Or do you want to tag on, Director Hayes, to talking about the conference? Okay, cool. Great. Anything else, Director McGrady? Okay, all right, thank you. So then we will then have Director Tran do your report.
That look was something different. Let's see. Tuesday, January 7th. I'm not going to go over all of December stuff. I'll just cover the last 2 weeks. Northshore coordination, or the coordination meeting with Director McGordy and Superintendent. I appreciated Executive Director Dree coming out with our team and showing us the update on the bonds and going through the numbers. It really helped to solidify my own understanding of how the community money is being used. And once again, I'm sure the rest of the board is thinking the same thing. We're thankful every time the community is passing the bonds and passing the levies. The 2x2, coordination meeting was actually with President Cass, so I had them reversed. 2x2 was with Director McGordy. Wednesday, January 8th, I attended the Eastside Town Hall, which was on the topic of school funding crisis. It was hosted by at least 4 school districts, Bellevue, Issaquah, Mercer Island, and Lake Washington. It's pretty much in the similar vein of what Northshore did in Edmonds. And so that one had a panel of, I forget, almost a dozen senators and reps, including Senator Wellman, again, was there. So I got to see her like twice in 1 week or something. But very positive. The theme that I took away from it, and I sent you all the notes from that, I think it's in the Friday brief, is they're really focused on progressive tax. But for us as a district, and this is just my personal opinion, great that they want to focus on progressive tax. What we can focus on, and it looks like that's what we're doing through our legislative priorities, is the big three, which is special ed, MSOC, and transportation. So despite having progressive tax or progressive revenue, we should be supporting special ed and MSOC and transportation, no matter what happens on the other side of that. So that's something that came through from the community there. But it was very much the representatives wanted to push progressive tax and get some assistance on that. And then January 11th, January 12th, which are Saturday and Sunday, also attended the same event, the WASA, WASBO, and WASDA Legislative Conference. Yeah, I won't go over more there because I think Director McGordy did a good job covering it.
Thank you, Director Tran. Director Hayes.
Thank you. Yeah, I attended, as was mentioned earlier, the Superintendent Listen and Learn with our families, with students with special needs, and along with Director Sotak. And it's going to be a theme as I go through this. There is great enthusiasm, shall we say, for supporting this work. The parents, they're ready to support us and advocate for their students in Olympia for funding. And we might have tried to convince one of them to run for school board that we had just met. He seemed lovely. So anyway, turns out he's in Maywood Hills, so we backed off. And then I attended the Santa Breakfast at Northshore Middle School. It's put on by our Rotaries. It's a free event for families. They get a pancake breakfast, they get coats and toys and books. And so we gave away between 700 and 800 books to kids over the course of the morning. So that was lovely. Attended the student advisory meeting right before break. And again, our students, they're ready. They were perhaps proposing some ideas that were not quite on the side of the line of legal. And we just said, we can't tell you what to do. How's that? You have not given up your right to free speech. Anyway, but I hope that we are working with our student advisory to make sure that they are attending on the 27th. They were very much interested in attending. Okay, great. And then, along with President Cass, attended the Eastside Chamber of Commerce Legislative Kickoff Breakfast, which had a slightly different flavor than perhaps the education town halls, but nonetheless, they, in the midst of whatever else we were talking about, the legislators were saying, and we have to fund education. So even unprompted, they were sharing that. So that was attended by 5 of our 9 legislators. So that was good to hear, as I've gone through the last months that we last met, that it is absolutely, the word is getting out and they're hearing that loud and clear, and people are motivated to support that work. I also attended the WASDA WASA WASBO Legislative Conference and heard from Senator Wellman and Representative Santos. Senator Wellman did share, and this is big news, because she has been a gatekeeper on special ed funding for many years, that she has finally been persuaded that we in fact are not over identifying students, and so now she is all in on lifting the cap and lowering the safety net qualifying and increasing the multiplier. So that was a huge win. And yes, Representative Santos is going to take some work. But fortunately, she doesn't like to talk money in her committee, so I think we'll be okay. And kudos there to Deputy Superintendent Berge. Did a great job in her 3 times of presenting the same information. It was very well received. And then I have been testifying or not testifying, I've had various meetings on bills that were going to be pre-filed, none of them with our local legislators, but a variety of topics, including special ed funding. Representative Paulette, I believe, has pre-filed his special ed funding bill. Okay. And then there was the financial literacy graduation requirement, the K-12 sexual assault survivor bill of rights, and a later high school start time. So it continues. And then I have been asked, and I haven't gotten confirmation, but to testify next week on a ban of flavored tobacco. I don't know that it's going to get anywhere, but nonetheless, so if anybody has thoughts on why flavored tobacco should be banned, I'm happy to bring that. I'm sure I only have 90 seconds to talk, but any information or stories will be great. And then, again, continued my many meetings with school board members from around the state and country. Before I forget, I am going to be meeting with the Department of Agriculture at the beginning of next month. And so that data that you have around our food and nutrition services program would be very useful when I meet with them. And then finally, I have completed my term as president of WASDA, and I am aware how unique my situation was, that I had the support of my board and my superintendent and Peggy. And I just want to thank all of you for that for the past year, and I'm ready to focus back on Northshore. So I appreciate all of your support.
We are very proud of how you represent us, Director Hayes, so thank you. All right, Director Sotak.
I have 2 comments. Whoever convinced Senator Wellman, I
deliver flowers.
I'll personally deliver it to whoever that was.
I have some ideas of who it was.
Okay,
I'll let you know.
they are due for something very nice, and a flavored vaping is. Tobacco is not candy, and therefore it should not be. Anyway, it's not candy. Candy has flavors. Tobacco should not. It should taste gross. Okay.
I'm gonna quote you.
Please quote me. I would love if my words got somewhere public, or more public. Okay, so on December 12th, I attended the lesson learned for families of students receiving special education services. And like Director Hayes said, it was a lovely group. They were very motivated. They had a lot of great ideas. They were very thankful for the services their children are getting, and are really happy to do anything they can to support the district, to support their students. And then on January 11th, attended the reflections reception, and it was lovely. And me and my oldest looked at every single picture, all of them, and talked about them all, and then watched videos of kids dancing and listened to some music that kids had composed. And she's excited for next year. She has ideas, but it was fantastic. I really liked the weekend. That was nice. It made it easier for, I think, families. There was a lot more students present. It wasn't so many adults, but because it wasn't during a school day, kids were coming in their soccer jerseys, fresh off the field. So yeah, that was really exciting to see a lot more students participating this year.
Thank you, Director Sotak. And I'll just quickly, I also, on January 7th, was at the East King County Chamber of Commerce Legislative Roundtable. And I was going in, the theory was we were kind of be there just to hear like how the problem is presented in a different audience, not an education-centric audience. So I was very pleasantly surprised. And when one of our representatives described the town hall at Edmonds Woodway High School as the same atmosphere as a state high school basketball championship, I was like, ooh, okay, we have made some impressions. So it was very well worth our time. So January 9th, attended...
You gotta say who your seatmate was at your table.
Tim Iman sat down next to me. but I did not identify myself to him. The lady on the other side of me who supports aquatic programs in Bellevue, I absolutely did. But anyways, so you never are bored. January 9th, attended WASDA Large School Caucus virtual meeting, and then also that evening on January 9th, attended a Winterville High School PTSA meeting. And I want to your point, Director McGordy, they are raring to go as well. So I think it's thinking about how we can help push out, inform. We're just informing about specific bills that might, have an opportunity to weigh in one way or the other. They are ready, and I bet you there'd be plenty of specific groups that would be ready. So they specifically asked for that, actually. So there you go. So that's my report. Yeah.
If I could just add, you reminded me. We've been told over and over again that if anything makes an impression with our legislators, it's personal stories, student stories. So I thought it would be good for us to collect some of those to take with us on the 27th. Obviously, we can send things before that, but I thought of the letter that we are receiving from our administrators, a lot of the emails that we receive from students and families about the same topic, APs and deans, as well as inclusion, all of the different programs that have been cut, anything that we've received. Or for anyone listening, if you have personal stories, send them to us and we can take them to our legislators.
Students who have large class sizes, teachers who are teaching large class sizes, all of everything. But, kids don't have school that day on the 27th. That is a non-student day. So if there are students...
We are going to talk about the format of that. We have a planning meeting on the 21st, depending on how it's going to work.
Okay.
We may have a max number, depending on the format, because if we are trying to have face-to-face, but that doesn't mean that's not a good idea. So we'll talk about that on the 21st. How's that sound? Okay. Director Chan, yeah.
Oh, I was going to continue the list that Director Sotak was saying. Lack of activity buses, students that are playing in orchestra or band that are hitting the walls because they're crammed in there. So all of the things that we've heard are stories that need to get in front of our representatives, our senators. It's just going to help.
Wonderful. Okay. All right. So that's going to wrap up our board member reports, which means we are going to adjourn this meeting and transition. We were supposed to start the study session at 6, but we'll have a little transition time, and then we'll dive in to talking about budget. Thank you, everyone.